Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy Tristan here, the digital storyteller, and I'm super excited to be with you for another episode of Cinecut, where we will be talking about the Sony 28mm prime f2.0 ultra wide lens. And why it's so dope for vlogging, for glide cam work, for weddings, for travel photography, for so many different reasons. Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's go. Woo! So I got to tell you that I'm super excited about this episode of Cinecut because this lens is one of my favorite lenses, and I actually didn't even know it existed a year ago. I was in the market for a new Sony body. I bought the A7 Mark III, and I was doing research for the best lenses to use and to purchase that were not like the Sony like G series $3,000 lenses, but I was looking for lenses that were cheap and cheerful, things that would be durable, that would suit my needs, but at the same time wouldn't break the bank. And I remember watching a Philip Bloom video, and he had mentioned this lens, and this lens was a 28mm, and I thought to myself, well, why would anybody buy or pick up a 28mm? Usually people would pick up, 16mm for glide cam work, 24mm, sort of in that focal length, a 20mm. 28mm didn't really make sense to me. And then I saw some of the footage from his review, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it out. And then I heard the price, and it was only like, I think at the time it was only about $450 to $500. And I was just like, I was enamored by it. I was intrigued by it. I was obsessed about it. And I said, you know what? Let me just try this lens. And I tried it and I loved it. I fell in love with it. And there were several reasons why I fell in love with this lens. And I'm just gonna go through a few reasons why. The price for me was vital because I was at a place where I was making, some significant investments in camera bodies like my FS5 as well as the A7 Mark III, and I just didn't have the budget to be spending, $2,000 on lenses. I have a ton of lenses, mostly Canon based, and I wanted to kind of start transitioning over to Sony, but I wanted to do it kind of slowly because I know that it would have been a significant investment if I went straight to G Master. So I really wanted to kind of be selective on the glass that I was going to invest in. And when I picked this up and I did some research and I saw the pricing for it, I was like, you know what? It's not too bad for $500, $550 with taxes, Canadian. You can get something that is pretty decent and works for you. I don't make millions of dollars, not yet at least. And so for me, when I am searching for gear, I'm searching for gear that is moderately priced. I don't mind making the investment into really great gear, but I don't feel like you always have to be spending thousands of dollars to find good, reliable, usable tools. The other reason why I really liked this particular lens, this 28mm prime by Sony, was because it went to, f2.0, and that is really crucial for me because a lot of times I'm in situations where I'm in super dark areas and rooms. I'm indoors, and to be able to stop down to, let's say, 2.8 or f3.2, which is more of a half stop, was vital for me. Especially when I'm doing glide cam work, or if I'm doing time lapse, or if I'm doing any sort of slider work and I want to get, the scale of a room. It was really vital for me to have something that would bring in a lot of light and allow a lot of light to hit the sensor. Now, I mean, again, it's not something that I always need to use. Generally speaking, with a wide lens like this, you don't necessarily need to be wide open at, f2.0 or f2.8, but it's really nice to have that because, again, it gives you more flexibility in different situations. And if I didn't have that extra, stop and a half, I don't know if this lens would be as as good or as nice or as attractive to me as it is right now. The other reason why I really wanted to pick up this lens and I found it to be amazing was because it was so tiny. Like, I mean, look at this. If I take off this lens hood, look how tiny this lens is. It's really not that big at all. I mean, just look at the Sony 28mm in comparison to the Canon 16-35 Mark II. Yes, this is a zoom lens versus a prime lens, but I mean, look at the size comparison. And they're pretty much doing the same thing, pretty much. Yes, this gives me 35-16mm. I get it, I know it, I'm gonna hear it in the comments, but I'm talking about from the practical sense of having a wide angle lens that will allow you to do glide cam work, allow you to do landscape photography, allow you to do architectural photography, allow you to do vlogging. I mean, I want this. I want something light. I want something crispy, creamy, cheap, and cheerful, as opposed to something that's almost $2,000 that will do a great job, but the weight, the size, that's just my opinion. But for this type of focal length, this 28mm, and you're putting it on to a full frame sensor, the type of images you're getting are really, really dope. And it's not super ultra wide to the point where it's just unusable or just way too distorted. The last reason why I really liked this lens and I wanted to pick it up was because of the autofocus. And not just the autofocus in photo mode, but the autofocus in video mode. Let me tell you, girl, child, let me tell you, okay? This lens is super snappy. I call it snaptacular, okay? It will jump in focus right away. It'll jump right into the focus that it needs to jump into. As long as you have the right settings on it, it is such a dope camera for vlogging. I felt it was important to get the technology out of the way and just be able to record something, my thoughts, my experiences, and do it in a fun way. And this lens is super agile and designed really for vlogging, I believe, because again, it's the perfect sort of focal length for vlogging. So now that you know some of the reasons why I purchased this lens and I really like it, let's talk a little bit about using it in real life situations. First time I used this lens in a real life situation, it was actually for a wedding. I was traveling and I was shooting a wedding, and I really wanted something that I could use on my gimbal, something that was light, was easy to balance with, that had the focusing that I wanted. And it was the first time that I had ever used it. It was super dark in the banquet hall. And one of the things I remember is I wanted to shoot everything in slow motion. So I was shooting at like 120 frames per second. And I remember stopping down all the way to 2.0. And I remember also putting up my ISO to ungodly levels. But this on my A7 III was like a dream. The way that it was able to really just be so quick and so snappy, I really, really love that. And not only that, the low light capability and performance with this lens was great. And for me as a creative, when you have tools like this that allow you to just focus in on being creative, that just work, that are just a dream to work with, it makes you a better creative because you're able to now focus in on what you do best, which is telling stories, which is being a digital storyteller. So again, I can't stress enough, in video mode, you know, the autofocus was just snapping away and it was super dope. Now, if you notice with the shots that I took at f8 versus f2, there are a difference in sharpness. The f8 image is a lot more sharper, a lot more crisper, sort of end to end. This lens shines best at probably f2.8 to about 5.6, maybe going up to f7, f8. That's a really good range. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to run outside. I'm going to put this lens, this 28mm lens, onto the A7 Mark III, and I'm going to have sort of a vlogging style setup and scheme and show you what this looks like in real life. All right, so this is the setup that I have for my vlogging, which is the 28mm Sony f2.0 with the A7 Mark III, and this combination is really lethal because of two reasons. Number one, obviously because of the lens. The lens is pretty wide. It's a super wide, I would say. I mean, it's not ultra wide in the sense of it being 16 millimeters or 14 millimeters, but 28 millimeters is awfully wide, and I find it to work really well. But you add that, in addition to that, you add the fact that, you know, it's working with a full frame camera like the A7 Mark III, and it's just a total new ballgame. And just the framing in general, there's no crop factor. Although you can use the Super 35 mode, it's not a Super 35 sensor. So that's really dope. The thing that I like about it is the framing. You can see pretty much my whole face. You can see my shoulders. You kind of get a bust, almost like a Hall of Fame bust type of framing. And you can see the environment as well, which is really important when you're vlogging. The other thing is I'm using my arm, but you can have like a you know, a gorilla pod. You can have other tripod legs at the bottom of the camera, and you can be vlogging and you can see everything behind you. You can see the environment around you. I'm just walking down the street just so you can see how things would look if I was vlogging, or if you were vlogging and you wanted to kind of get a cool vlogging shot of you walking and talking. So I'm just gonna act like I'm walking and talking. I'm gonna cross the street here. I'm gonna do what I gotta do. I'm gonna say yada yada yada. Ooh, this is a nice sunset. I'm gonna turn around so you can see the sunset behind me. It's pretty cool, this sunset. So let's check out some other shots, both my photography and some video clips I took, just so you can see how wide it can get. The people that I think are best suited for this particular lens are people like vloggers, digital storytellers, or cinematographers that do a lot of gimbal work, people that like to do landscape photography. Any of those types of people would get a lot of great mileage out of this little spunky lens. Well, that's the end of another episode of Cinecut with your host, me, Tristan Barrocks. I hope you learned something and you laughed out loud too. Until the next time, peace. Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy Tristan Barrocks here, and I'm super excited that you watched one of my videos. I really appreciate it. I'm super grateful that you took the time out of your busy day to just check out what I got cooking up. And the most important thing to me is that you leave better than you came. You leave with something new and something that inspires you and something creative that you're going to implement into your digital storytelling journey. That being said, if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to comment, like, share, put the thumbs up, hit that thumbs up, and also share this channel with other friends or family members that you feel would gain something from watching some of my videos. Until the next time, have a wonderful day. Peace.